Hey everybody, it's me, Mario, and welcome to a very special edition of What's Brewing. It's our Halloween episode, or as we're calling it, HalloWhat's Brewing. Get it? Like HalloWhat's Brewing? Anyway, welcome. I'm glad that you guys have decided to be a part of it. Yes, I'm Mario from the Nintendo series, if you're not aware, which hopefully at this point you guys should be. It's one of the more recognizable sights and names and faces and all. But I'm your bearded barista for tonight. We've got a bunch of little different things for you. Still got some tech news, still got a little bit of a mini review and all that kind of stuff, our espresso shot and our freshly brewed news and all that. But for the most part, it's going to be scary tech stories and whatever. It's kind of a roundtable freeform tonight, so anyway, I'm so glad that you have decided to join us. But let me introduce you to the Brew Crew. It's a little different tonight, and I'll just start from my left to right as I usually do. First up is back from the dead, Fred Scholl. He is our wizard tonight, so everybody behave. He'll cast a spell and turn us into a toad. But everybody say hey, Fred, and Fred say hey.
Hey, y'all.
Hey, Fred.
Running up next is it's Peter Parker, but don't tell anybody. Spider-Man, Joe Scarring, and everybody say hey, Joe, and Joe say hey.
Hey guys, I gotta head off after this to go fight the Green Goblin for a bit, but I'm good for an hour on here.
Excellent, excellent. And next up is I don't know that he's quite as sexy as the I Dream of Genie, but anyway, our genie genie from the bottle, Tony McAfee. Everybody say hey, Tony, and Tony say hey.
Guys.
Hey, Tony.
We're going to do 3 wishes on this show. Just right now.
3 wishes and no wishing for more wishes, right?
No, but you can wish for inbox invites.
Oh, good call, good call. I've seen a few lingering around. Everybody's asking for him still, so that's very good. A few reminders before we get started with all of our stuff. First off, hashtag MCOJBrew. That is our hashtag. If you have a question for us or a scary story you'd like to share or a costume we'd like to see, go ahead and hit that hashtag up. MCOJBrew. That's on all the socials, and we'll check all that stuff out. I want to see your stuff. I've had a few people send me that they were going to send me costumes and all, but I haven't seen them yet. So hit that up. Questions or costumes, let's see that. We'll try to post those. We'll do a screen share live on the show. And if you're listening on the podcast, I'm sorry you're missing a lot of the visuals here, but we'll post some pictures and try to do some screenshots throughout. But just know I'm Mario. We've got a wizard. We've got Spider-Man. We've got a genie from the lamp. And you guys may be noticing that Chuck Haines is missing. He had everything set up. He was doing it from his front porch, and he had like Mr. Bones and all that stuff set up. But you guys keep well wishes, warm thoughts, prayers, what have you, for Chuck and his family. He's got a family thing going on. Somebody in his family is sick, so he's unable to join us tonight. So you guys send a little warm wishes his way. And he's on all the socials as well. But we'll miss you, Chuck, and hopefully you'll catch the show later. But let's go ahead and get right to it. Fred, we usually will start off with our freshly brewed news. So do you have any scary news for us tonight?
Well, one scary headline that we've been kind of looking at, and it kind of relates to other stuff we've been talking about as well over time, has to do with some drone flying objects over in France, and this time it is some sort of mystery drones that have been turning up over nuclear power plants in France, and nobody, I guess what's scary about this is that nobody really knows who is controlling these. Greenpeace, which is an activist group that has been known to stage some political theater protesting nuclear power plants, has denied that they've been involved in this, but it's really unknown as to whether this is some kind of drama that's being staged, somebody trying to prove a point, whether it's just hobby plane flying, which have just veered in the wrong places, or whether it's something much more sinister. So really this is kind of an open-ended, hanging kind of story at the moment, and nobody really knows what the next chapter is going to be there, but unmanned crafts of various kinds are fascinating. The technology is amazing. We've been looking at self-driving cars and self-driving trucks. Amazon has talked about using drones to deliver their products. But this is one of the places where we've got some gray area there, and there's a little bit of a spooky quality to it, isn't there?
Well, yeah, I mean, there really is, especially when you're talking like they're not really sure what's going on. And not to diminish France, I mean, they've got a decent government that kind of oversees the air. You know, their air force is decent. And it was orchestrated. It was more than one site, kind of all at the same time. So it wasn't just some random, hobbyist that just happened to fly over and get in the picture. I mean, it was kind of somebody's behind it, and then, the people they thought isn't there. So it does, yeah, I mean, not to scare anybody, but there is a scary, creepy factor to it. I agree. Spider-Man, you're more into crime fighting. What do you think about it?
Well, I mean, like, we kind of saw with, like, Amazon and their drones when they first started, like, this whole drone topic really started to start big this year. But, I mean, not really knowing who's behind it, I mean, I do kind of see the danger behind that. But for drones in general and stuff like that, I mean, I would absolutely love to have, my Prime Pantry and my DVDs and my all my Amazon goodies just flown to my house over here. But I mean, there's still, and just for drones in general, there's a lot of rules and regulations we have to talk about. I mean, there's the risk of you have a Prime Pantry drone or any other drone flying through there being used for a commercial business or something, and it flies into a bird or into a plane. I mean, there's just a lot of rules and stuff, and we have to work through still, and I think we're still probably a good few years off before they really start to become mainstream. So I think we still have a lot of growing pains to go on that before we really start to see drones like become more public use right now.
Yeah, I think you're right. And well, and I guess, and I hate that Chuck's not here. We do miss him because he's better on ones and zeros. But thinking about the states, especially, just because I'm here and I'm a little more familiar with it, but really anywhere, like it seems like laws or regulations or rules or whatever it is behind the curve of all technology, and that's any security, privacy, drones, or all this kind of stuff. The technology comes out and people can use it in the public, and then laws start backtracking, and then right now it's just you just can't use them for commercial use, and like that's not going to work. Like what you're talking about, eventually we're going to have to use them, but it's almost like you need a technology czar or somebody to oversee technology that actually knows technology, because what happens is you get somebody that doesn't really know it, and like, well, if you just use a long password, your drones will be safe. It's like there's more to it than that, but that's conversation for another day. But I think we need to be a little more ahead of the curve than sitting behind the 8-ball sometimes with it.
Right, and we're talking about like the laws and stuff too. Like with Google's self-driving car, when they released that announcement video, 4 or 5 months ago now. I mean, the concept, I absolutely love the idea of self-driving cars or any self-driving vehicle. But then the FBI actually, they said they're holding that back because of the chance that terrorist groups could use that as kind of unmanned bomb vehicles. So while it is technically a possibility, we can still do that with the cars we have today. So, I mean, technically, yes, it is an area of concern, but it's really not big enough of a reason or legitimate enough a reason to hold back such a fantastic technology. So just like Alvie said, we do have a lot of growing pains to do, especially in the United States as new technologies develop, and eventually we will get them, but it is just going to take many years before we see stuff like drones and self-driving cars and all that big futuristic stuff really start to become like a norm here with our daily lives.
Yeah, go ahead.
And with that, you have the same argument that you have against gun control. Against gun control, well, you can still slap all the regulations on them you want. Bad guys are still going to use them. So you can slap all the regulations on self-driving cars. We've had remote control cars, actual cars, that work on remote controls ever since you've seen a car wreck itself in a movie. So if that was going to happen, it would have happened. And I just don't think. I mean, when it becomes more popular and more accepted and more available, yeah, it's more likely to happen. But I don't think fear is any reason to prevent this specific development.
No, I agree. We're talking scary and creepy, but yeah, fear shouldn't ever drive anything. I agree, absolutely. Fred, anything else? I know you were looking up some scary news stories and all that for us, and had some other stuff.
Well, we've got some of these are not. We've got some things that we can throw around. Some of these are not necessarily hot news at the moment, but I've pulled up some stories on scary technologies, present and future, things going on, things on the horizon, things brewing that maybe are scary to some people, or maybe should be scary to some people. So if we're ready to go there, we can start kicking some of these around. Here is, bear with me a second here. Here's a kind of interesting one that I haven't seen a lot of press about, but this is a kind of an interesting and weird technology, and it's lab-grown meat. Scientists have managed in laboratories to produce synthetic beef and eggs, and they're actually able to grow this stuff and create an edible product. But who knows what it is that they're actually turning out? Who knows what it is that they're turning out, and who knows what the genetic makeup of this stuff is, and who knows what happens when you actually ingest it. So
I'd imagine it's early in testing, so they don't have any like long-term effects of it, do they?
I think it's probably too soon to tell. You know, on the one hand, you know, it seems like it's something that could delight vegetarians and animal rights activists if you can produce these products and it doesn't actually take raising an animal and bringing it to slaughter. But then on the other hand, we've got this mysterious, you know, genetic workings, you know, and we've got all these GMO foods that you know, the scientists that are associated with the companies manufacturing the stuff keep reassuring everybody is safe, but it's one of these playing with fire kind of technologies, and really it hasn't been around long enough to get an idea of what it's going to do when your body tries to assimilate something that nature didn't create to be eaten.
Yeah, I get.
Man created it, and it's kind of an ominous thought out there.
Well, and I would wonder, you know, we talk third world countries that they don't have access to clean water and healthy food and all that kind of stuff. Maybe that's something that we could use for that. I don't know. That's, you know, well beyond my scope. But you know, I think more, you know, here in most countries that are able to view an online live broadcast or a podcast probably have access to food and clean water. But there are plenty of places that don't, and this may depending on how it works and all that, might be an answer. So. Scary and maybe hopeful.
To me, it's scary because what it sounds like to me is it sounds like this is a horribly failed attempt at cloning, and they just got some meat thing that grew with no bones and no brain, and now they're like, oh, you know what we could do though? We could eat this. That's what it sounds like to me. So
it does sound like it's the setup for a science fiction movie, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It sounds like that old joke they used to say about certain fast food restaurants that they quit like harvesting live animals and started creating, you know, headless chickens or you know, feetless cows and all that kind of stuff. So yeah. Maybe there's a little truth to that science fiction.
That's funny. Let's see. I've got a scary tech story. Just something I've experienced today, actually. See, we've got here the Motorola Droid Turbo. And this is supposed to be one of the best devices for battery life that's come out in a long time. It certainly has a bigger battery stock than any device I've used in a long time, or ever, or actually any device I've heard of. 3,900 milliamp hour, and I got my screenshots earlier today when it was at 7%, showing the kind of battery I got after fully draining and fully charging. And I'm sad to report that I only got 15 hours, just under 15 hours off the charger, and what was it, 4 hours and 45 minutes screen on time.
Yeah, something like that. That's right.
It is a good battery. It is very good battery for a phone. But coming from the OnePlus One with 16 hours off the charger and 9 hours screen on time, there's no excuse for this having a 30% larger battery than the OnePlus One. So that's my scary story.
What do you attribute that to, Tommy? Is it the display, or is it just badly coded? What's the deal with it, you think?
Well, it's okay. There's a combination of things, I think. Obviously, the display, but the problem with the display, the issue I find with blaming it on the display is that everybody was saying, "Oh, well, once we get the Snapdragon 805, Quad HD won't be an issue for battery life anymore." And if this is any indication, this is only a 5.2-inch display. If this is any indication, this is not. People are saying they're going to be afraid of the Nexus 6. On the one hand, I don't want to believe that. I want to stay as far away from believing that the Nexus 6 is going to have bad battery life as possible, because that's what all the other Nexuses have had in common, wrong with them. But on the other hand, you can't argue with this. Now, like I said, this is still good battery life for a phone. But for a phone that's 11 millimeters thick, that actually has some heft in your hand, I don't know if this is excusable coming from my OnePlus One, which actually has a larger screen and a smaller battery and gets way better battery life. I think one of the other problems that they had is that they said, oh, well, the Droid Turbo is going to have a 3,900 milliamp hour battery, so let's put tweaking the battery usage not battery stats, but basically, I wish Chuck were on because he'd know exactly what to say, but let's put tweaking the hardware battery, the software integration that will save battery life on the back burner, because that's what it really feels like they did with that. It feels like they said, okay, we're just going to throw Android on it and make Android work as well as possible, not paying attention to battery life. I feel like if they'd have done what Motorola has done with every other Motorola device that they've been famous for the past 18 months, and tweaked the crap out of it and made it work as well as possible with the hardware, we'd be seeing much better battery life. And mind you, this was most of the day on Wi-Fi, so this isn't even LTE. It can't even be used as an excuse for why the battery life was so bad. Was so lackluster.
Even if you don't compare it to the OnePlus One, which is a fantastic battery life, I mean, the reason this is kind of so scary is that the battery life for the Droid Turbo is like the big marketing tactic that Verizon is using for the phone, advertising it's got like the best battery life, and you can get like 8 hours of battery life out of 15 minutes of charging. And as Tony's used it, he's found out that's obviously not true with that. Yeah. So I mean, I think that's what really is the scariest part here. Now, if they were marketing the device as maybe like one of the first phones with the Adreno 420 or one of the first phones with the Snapdragon 805, not that that would be good marketing for them, but that way they'd be putting more of a focus on those specifications, and then you'd have really solid battery life with it, which would be awesome. But then you're like putting all of your attention to the battery life, and if it's good but not amazing, then you got kind of a big problem there if you're handling it like that.
Yeah.
It makes me wonder what the ROM or development community will pull out of it once you start ramping down some of the cores and tweaking it a little better. But, I mean, you can't tout your battery life based on what a developer's going to do later once they hack into your kernel and stuff. That's not fair.
Well, and you can't rely on that anyway. It's a Quad HD display. I don't think there's going to be much. Seeing the jump from... But now, I'm sure it has a lot to do with the architecture and not just the speed of the processor. But seeing the jump in processing or in speed from a device like the LG G3 running a Snapdragon 801 with a Quad HD display, which lagged as bad as Samsung, to this device, which is also running a Quad HD display, but on the Snapdragon 805, this thing runs like a Nexus. This thing is smooth and buttery when it's working. I mean, it does work well. Don't ever think that my thing about battery life, the phone is a good phone. It works really well. But that 0.2 gigahertz difference in processing power, so is all that's different other than architecture between the Snapdragon 801 and the Snapdragon 805. And like I said, I don't know about the architecture, so I'm sure there is more different between the 801 and the 805. But I'm not thinking you're going to want to like underclock or undervolt your processor on this phone while it's got a Quad HD display to run.
Yeah. At what cost do you start ramping down for battery life? You start losing performance.
Yeah.
But that I know your spec sheet over there, but do we need 8 cores to run a phone?
Well, no. But I don't think there's any phone. I don't know about the Vivo 4. I haven't checked into the way MediaTek does their octa-core chipset. But we talked about a week or two ago that the octa-core chipsets that are coming out in phones now, like the Snapdragon, is it 615 or the Snapdragon 815, whatever the next one coming out is. It's an octa-core chipset. The Samsung Exynos octa-core chipsets, and the there's one other I'm forgetting.
Is it LG's new one?
What's that? LG, yeah, that's right. LG's new octa-core chipset. All of these they're octa-core chipsets in that there are 8 processing cores in the chipset, but it's actually 2. It's not an octa-core processor. It's 2 quad-core processors, one for high-end and one for low-end. So one for battery saving, one's for when you really need that to push the extra push of processing power, like gaming and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it's not a true octa-core. What's that?
I remember. Now that you say that, I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a true octa-core chipset, and there may be. I think the MediaTek from the Vivo 4, the Blue Vivo 4, is a true octa-core chipset, but still, that's a MediaTek chipset, so you're still not gonna have superior architecture and build there. So, but we'll see. You don't need it, but they're just trying to figure out ways to squeeze more battery life and more processing power into these phones, and still keep the same size batteries.
Yeah. Without overloading it. So, well, you know, I always brag about my Sony. They've got killer battery life. We give them a hard time, or you guys give them a hard time. I love my Sony stuff. I was talking to Hunter. He used to be with the group. He hung out with us some. He's got the Z3V, the Sony Z3V on Verizon, and he's getting killer battery life. But it's a smaller phone. He's getting about what you're getting, Tony, out of it, 4.5 hours, if I remember, 15 hours, off the charger kind of thing. But it's a much smaller phone and not touted for, having this a third bigger battery and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, in Rolf, one of our viewers, and a guy I met on Movi, he was commenting. He actually had a OnePlus One and sold it and kept his. He used it for a while, sold it, and kept his Xperia Z. He's got an M8 as well, but he said he liked his Z Ultra better because the screen size. And he said even now he thinks he got a bad OnePlus One because it was laggy in areas, but he said even though the OnePlus One has better, more RAM and a better chipset, the Ultra was still, with Sony's stock ROM, was still smoother and just worked better and better battery life than the OnePlus One.
Well, I agree. I've said it a million times. My 6.5-inch Sony Z Ultra is the best phone, my favorite phone I've ever had, hands down. And that goes, and I've had a lot. So I love it, absolutely love it. But let's move on. I know we've got one more thing. Somebody's going to bring up. Let me see it on our sheet. Joe is going to bring it up. One more little bit of what's brewing news with Andy Rubin. Joe, what's going on there? What's brewing?
Yeah, so Andy Rubin is pretty much the former head of Android. So he was kind of there from the start of things, but we got a report, I believe it was earlier this week, towards the beginning of this week, that Andy Rubin is actually leaving Google now. So that's kind of caused quite a bit of scare for the Android community, having one of the guys who was there from the beginning is now leaving it now. Sundar Pichai, I think that's how you say his name, he's kind of been leading like Chrome and the mobile development aspect and the Chromebooks and all that, so he's still really kind of like leading Android in the direction it's going right now. But, I mean, having a guy who was there from the beginning who's like at Android's roots, having him leave the company after so many years, it is kind of a scary thing. I mean, now I'm not saying that Android is going to go downhill or anything. I mean, they're really going uphill. We're seeing them with the whole new campaign with the new Nexus product, so it's not really anything that's going to hurt Android right now, and it might not even hurt them later on. But you have someone who's right there at the top just leave for a different company. It does cause a bit of scare, so what do you guys think about this whole thing with Andy Rubin deciding to leave the Google?
Well, Andy Rubin was the creator of Android, and Google bought him. Bought his company and bought Android and him with it. So he didn't like apply for a job at Google and get hired. So I don't think his heart was with Android, but I don't think his heart was he was never a true Googler. Not that he wasn't great at his job. I don't know about that. So, but I just think he's not somebody who got the job, worked his way up and is now leaving. Like I think Vic Gladtrola or whatever his name is from Google Plus, stuff like that. It's not a situation like that. He's actually leaving He's leaving to pursue his robot company. I don't know what the company is, but he's leaving to pursue. He's going to be making robots, and I know that it just sounds silly to say he's going to be making robots, but I can't think of the actual wording from the article.
I think part of it is that he's going to be an incubator for hardware startup companies. So, what I think we have here is, yes, we've got the inventor of Android, which is now unquestionably a thriving entity on its own. He created the idea. It was originally, perhaps a humble little beginning, was bought out by Google. It's now on, I don't know what the number is as of today, but it's something like 1 billion devices. It doesn't necessarily take the creator. It doesn't necessarily require the creator of the operating system to be there working with it and nurturing it. He may have gotten bored of it, quite honestly, if he's a creative, inventing type and wants to move on to something else. And, the news seems very quick lately to, every time there's a change of personnel, to want to sound the death bells for Google, some aspect of Google, every time something changes. But it's not like he went over to the other side. He didn't abandon Android and go to work for Apple or Microsoft in their phone department and come out and tell us why Android is terrible. He moved on to pursue, I think, another dream or another fantasy of his, and I think Android will do just fine on its own. In addition to what Google is doing, it's in the hands of the open source community, and I think it's got a life of its own now. And I think he's turned his kid loose, he's considered his kid to be grown up, and moved on to his next adventure.
Well, and he hasn't been extremely hands-on with Android for a little while either. So it's not like, he was crucial in getting Lollipop together, and now that he's pulled out, Lollipop's going to fall apart or anything like that. But still, yeah, the creator of something leaving, scary news as far as that goes.
I don't think he was actually on the Android team for the last, I don't know how long, but I don't think I don't think he's leaving from the Android team. I think he's working on a different project already.
Yeah, I think you're right. And from what I heard from some people, a year or more. So it's not even he's been backing out for the last quarter. It's been a while. So. Still scary, but not terribly. Death toll hasn't been rung, or death bell hasn't been rung there, Fred. All right, so here we're on our second half of the show. Let's move away from news for just a little bit. And Tony, you touched on it a little bit with a scary tech story. So let's share a little bit. I'll go ahead and kick it off because this broke my heart. About a year ago, I had my Nexus 7 2013, and I baby my devices. I sell them back on typically Swap-A-Tony. You'll be happy. Back mint when I sell them. They're in a case, screen protector, dbrand skin, something like that. So when I sell it, it's pristine. Or at least that's my goal. So here it is. I've got my 2013 Nexus 7 tablet. I've got it in a sleeve. In another sleeve, and the kind of sleeve, I got a leather sleeve, and then it goes inside one of those origami kind of magnetic cases, and you can use it as a stand, is why I had it into. Well, it was kind of bulky, and so I pulled it out of the magnetic stand or magnetic case thing, and just had it in the leather one, and I set it on top of the car. And I know you guys know where I'm going with this already, but I always drive, so when I put it on the car, I put it on top of the driver window. Pretty much. So when I open the door, I can't help but see it. My wife came with me. She wanted to drive, and she hopped in the car. I was outside taking the garbage to the road, hopped in the back seat, and off we go. Get to work, and where's my tablet? Instantly, I recognize. I know exactly where it is. Hop back in the car, fly back to it. It's in the street. It made it, just the leather case. It wasn't. I wish it had been in the magnetic case, because then it would just stuck to the car. But made it out of the neighborhood into the main road, and it's sitting in the middle on the double yellow line. Pull up to it, get it out, and I think it's okay because I had a dbrand skin on it, and so I open it up, and it's just one little hairline crack. I'm like, beautiful. No response. And that's the type of screen where if there's any crack, pretty much you just lose it anyway. And I pull the skin back, and the debranded skin kind of goes around the screen. So you got the screen here and then a frame. I pull the frame sticker back, the label, decal, and it's just like completely shattered. Which makes sense. 45 miles an hour hits the road, probably got ran over a time or two. It devastated me. It really did. It still breaks my heart just thinking about it. Like, it brings a tear to my eye. So that's a scary story I've got, and I know you guys have some too. So if you're watching live especially, but really if you're watching later in the week or even on the podcast listening, and you want to share a scary tech story like that or anything else, hashtag MCOJBrew. Hit it in the comments of the video, hit it on the comments of the event page, somewhere on there, and we'll get to it, and we'll try to either read it or share it later during this week and retweet it, reshare it for you. So, all right, Spider-Man, Genie, Merlin, or Wizard, share me a little scary tech story that you've got.
Well, I can go ahead and piggyback off the Nexus real quick. I actually have a couple I can do. The first one happened with my Nexus 5. So I had this a couple months after the phone came out, so probably around the October-November time frame. And that was the first phone that I ever decided that, hey, I want to try to root my phone and put a custom ROM on here. So I had the Nexus 5, so after probably a week or so of owning it, I decided to look online, look up all about rooting and flashing ROMs and all that fun stuff. So I went ahead and I rooted the phone and I flashed CyanogenMod on it. And initially it went fantastic. So I had that going for probably month or two, and I was running CyanogenMod 11 on there, I believe, at the time, and it was running perfectly. But then I got to using it, I'm thinking, well, I can do a whole lot more with these different ROMs. There's AOKP, there's the pack ROM, there's all these different things I can put on my phone. So I went ahead one night and decided I was going to go ahead and try to put AOKP on my Nexus 5. So I plug it into my computer, I download the image file for AOKP, I plug my Nexus 5 into the computer, and I've got it going. And I unplug it, and I turn on my phone, I get to the home screen, and it just says the Android OS or system, operating system, whatever. That fails every single time. It fails, I hit OK, the fail error pops up again. So this is probably at 10 o'clock at night, so I'm tired. I probably shouldn't be doing it this late at night. So I go ahead, I try to put back a stock image of Android on there. I must have done my backup or something wrong. That screws it up. It gets stuck in an endless boot. So my Nexus 5 was pretty much a brick at that point. Thankfully, though, this kind of has a positive ending, unlike the next story we're going to get to with me. I called Google Play support, and I told the guy that the thing was rooted. I had messed with it. I had put on a custom ROM. But the guy said, you know what, no problem at all. We're going to go ahead and take this, get you taken care of, because we don't want to limit our customers with what they can do with their phones, which blew my mind. I was like, go Google with that kind of support for your customers right there. So that kind of scary story turned out all right. Now, with the second one that's been going on for almost 4 weeks now, has not been going that great. So for those of you that know, I do have a Samsung Gear Live of my own, and my personal one runs fantastic. Now, my mom also has one. And coming to about 3 weeks ago, her charger broke. Now, Chuck could back me up on this if he was here. The charger for the Samsung Gear Live is ridiculously cheap and extremely stupid. It's this little teeny tiny piece of cheap plastic that probably costs 50 cents to make, and you got to snap it into the back of the Gear Live, and it's just a complete pain every single day. You got to charge it. So one of the pins or one of the knobs or something on the little cradle for it on my mom's fell off. So at that time, because now you can buy a charger replacement on the Google Play Store, but at the time this happened, you could not, their option was not there. So I gave Google Play a call, and the person I talked to was really helpful. They said that because of the situation I was at, they would actually have to send me a brand new replacement Samsung Gear Live to get a new charger. So, I mean, like anyone, I mean, my charger breaks, I get a brand new Samsung Gear Live, so it's like win-win-win all around, which is what I thought at first. So I get the new Gear Live back because if for those of you that don't know, if you do a replacement through Google Play, basically you call them and they'll send you an email with a link. You click on that, it expires within 24 hours. You click on that link and then they basically order a new phone with the authorization hold placed on your debit or credit card. And then when you get the new replacement, you ship back your original one with a shipping label they return. So I went ahead and ordered my replacement, and I got the first replacement Gear Live to me. So I go ahead, open it up, and I hold down the power button, just like so, that I'm doing right now with this Samsung Gear Live right here, and nothing happened at all. So I go ahead, I think, maybe I just got to charge it. Maybe it's a dead charge in here. Go ahead, plug it into a wall outlet, and try to turn it on, and nothing's happening still. Leave it in for 5 or 10 minutes to go to turn it on, still nothing. So I think, maybe worst case scenario, the watch is dead on battery, and the charger they sent me is defective. Go ahead, plug it into the charger that I use for my Samsung Gear Live, and still nothing. So I get to go ahead, and I call Google Play support for a second time. Now, the lady I talked to this time, she runs me through extremely basic troubleshooting tips, which for people like us who spend our time with this technology was kind of painful. It was stuff like make sure the plastic is all off of the thing, check the pins to make sure they're not damaged, hold down the power button for 30 seconds, and I'm like screaming in my head this whole time because like I know how to troubleshoot a watch. But she was very helpful and nice with it. So we came to the conclusion that this watch right here was in fact a dud. So now I have got my broken Samsung Gear Live from before. Actually, not broken. I just had a charger I wanted to replace, and the replacement that they sent me that isn't working. So what I had to do, what the lady told me, I had to send back my broken Gear Live that really I just need a new charger for, ship that back to them, and then keep the defective replacement unit, and they would start that replacement cycle again. So I send it back to them, the original one where the charger broke that technically still worked. And once they got it, I had to call Google Play support again and go through the whole replacement process again and get in a second replacement Gear Live. So this came in just a day or day before yesterday, which is the second replacement Gear Live I got. So I go ahead, take it out of the box, and like, you know what, this is going to work. It was probably just a mix-up the first time. Go ahead, hold down the power button, and we are getting nothing at all. I can say, you know what, maybe just a dead battery this time. Go ahead, plug it into the wall, charge it, and as you can see right now, we're going to hold down the power button. We are still getting nothing at all here. So now that's two replacements that are broken. I have two broken Gear Lives that just won't turn on at all. My working Gear Live is off there because I had to send it back for this whole replacement process to work right. So I called Google for a third time, and the person I talked to initially said that since I do have these two Samsung Gear Lives, I have the choice of either going through this whole replacement cycle a third time, which there's no way in heck I'm going to go through that again, or I can go ahead and get a refund for my whole issue I've had with this thing. But to get that refund, I have to send back the first replacement Gear Live they sent me, wait for that to get to them, and then ship back the second replacement they sent me. So I'm looking at about 2 weeks before I get my credit for this initial Samsung Gear Live, which, keep in mind, was working actually, but I just wanted a new charger. So I apologize if the story is kind of confusing to understand. I mean, it's confusing even for me who's going through this process right now. Google Play support, I normally have no trouble at all with them, but this just passed almost 4 weeks now, nearly a month, going through multiple Samsung Gear Lives, two of the replacements being duds. I gotta say, this is probably one of the scariest tech situations I've had to go through in quite some time, and has really kind of turned me off from the whole Samsung product lineup just from this little experience here. So if you're looking for an Android Wear watch, I would maybe reconsider getting a Gear Live and go for something like a Moto 360 or LG G Watch.
Zen watch. Get the
Zen watch. The Zen watch in there, definitely. So I didn't mean to take up so much time with that story, but that is my very scary tech story right there.
No, it was good, and yeah, what's funny in that is like, yeah, you just needed the charger fixed. Like, can I just send the broken replacement and keep the charger?
Well, not according to Google. According to Google, you got to do it the right way.
So what you need to do is get the credit, no matter how long it takes, throw in a couple bucks, and buy yourself a Moto 360.
Okay, well, I was going to do that initially, but after I send back the first one, I'm going to kind of sweet talk them and kind of work them and see if maybe we can just kind of replace this, throw an extra $50 on their end and get a Moto 360. Now, that's probably not going to go through, but I'm going to try it because it's worth a 10-minute phone call. I'll nag them enough and see if we can get somewhere with that. But if not, I'll throw in $50 and get a Moto 360. So
Yeah, really.
that's how it's going to go.
Crazy.
Spider-Man, I'll give him a little talk.
Yeah, do a video chat with them. They'll never question Spider-Man.
Not at all.
All right. Well, we've all shared one except our Wizard down there. Wizard, you got a scary tech story?
Scary tech stories. Well, let's see what I can tell. You know, I'm not that scared of technology. You know, I may be older than you guys, but I'm not. not that scared of technology. We had a little bit of a scare last night and this morning. Similar to Alvie's story, but not with hopefully with a happier ending. My wife dropped or knocked off of her desk her MacBook laptop and didn't look at it until this morning when she discovered that there were several significant cracks down the screen. Fortunately, it still works, and fortunately, it's a display screen and not a touch screen. In which case, the cracks would have killed it. But it's actually still functional, although it's heartbreaking to look at the screen with cracks in it, and it does look like, although it's not it's kind of an unauthorized repair. It can be done as a do-it-yourself repair. So. Silver lining there is that I get to do a little bit of a hack job on the MacBook, which will be kind of fun. What else can I tell you that's kind of scary? I did have a weird incident, and it was kind of one of these unexplained things. It was back maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and I was still on my original Droid 1, first Android phone that I owned, the actual original Motorola Droid. And I think this was a little past its prime already. I think it was in the point in time that I was waiting for my next phone, which was going to be the Galaxy Nexus, which was delayed and delayed and delayed. So I was keeping this Droid on life support, and for all it was kind of starting to run sluggishly, and then the screen kind of became less responsive. Then one night, it just got wacky on me, and the thing actually started acting like it was possessed. It would turn itself on spontaneously and start activating applications as if there was a phantom hand tapping on the screen. And the first moves like this were kind of weird, but then what actually started to happen was that it opened up the SMS app and started typing garbage characters as if some alien being had taken over the thing, or some it was demonically possessed and it was trying to broadcast messages. So I was initially suspect that it was hacked and being controlled remotely somewhere, but taken off the network and put on airplane mode, it still kept doing the same thing. And I could not find any evidence of anybody having the same symptom, but I did bring it back to the Verizon store. I had the extended warranty, and they just looked at it and said, the screen's gone bad, and they immediately replaced it with a new one. But I guess it was a little bit Halloween-y there, because it had that kind of haunted sort of appearance to it.
Yeah, that would be definitely kind of freaky. Open up a phone like that and just have it go nuts. That'd be kind of an unsettling thing to go through.
Yeah, that was just kind of weird when it looked like somebody else was using my phone to send these cryptic text messages.
Yeah, no. That's genuinely scary. Mine was operator error, but yours was kind of like, what's going on here?
That's fine.
Yeah, I know. Another replacement thing for me when I had my PlayStation 3. This is going back a few years now. I actually went through 5 or 6 different PlayStation 3s within the matter of maybe 3 years. The first one I had, the laser burnt out automatically. It was playing Fallout 3, didn't save it, and the laser for the disc reader burns out. So go ahead, return that. You can see I have a horrible history with replacement devices. Go through, get another PlayStation 3. And with that one, I think the Wi-Fi card or whatever in it, Wi-Fi antenna broke. So I had to go ahead, return that one. Got the third PlayStation 3. The fans on that just went crazy, and those just burn out or did something weird. Went ahead, returned that. Got the second one. The Wi-Fi breaks again. And then the fifth one, we got another issue with the Wi-Fi card or reader or whatever. So replacement devices, I mean, we just don't have that good of a history of getting along. And actually, one more I just remembered, when I had my Samsung Galaxy S Fascinate, I believe, which was a Android phone that shipped with a 2.1 Eclair, I think. So going kind of back with the whole Android phones. I just sent that into repair for something, and I got a little flip phone that was a unit I was just using as a replacement while my Samsung phone was being repaired. And I was eating some cookies and some Oreos, and got a glass of milk one day. I was holding the phone over it, and well, there it is in the bottom of my milk glass one day. So go ahead and pick it out, and that replacement that was covering my Samsung phone is now trashed. So don't, if it's a manufacturer out there, if you're thinking about sending a Spider-Man a replacement, I would not recommend it because it's more than likely something bad is going to happen to it.
Yeah, you've got really bad luck with all that kind of stuff. Your original ones are decent usually, but your replacements are terrible.
Yeah, so I'm scared if I ever get a replacement for OnePlus, what that's going to be like. That's going to be an absolute nightmare.
You were talking about
a replacement from OnePlus.
Do what?
I said, good luck getting a replacement from OnePlus.
Yeah.
Yes, that's a scary story. Yeah, trying to order a OnePlus or replace it. Absolutely. You're talking about rooting your phone or whatever. I did back to my Nexus 7. That was apparently a bad luck phone or a device for me. Like day one, like I opened out of the box, and I never do that. I root and ramen and all that kind of stuff, and it was like the day it released, so there wasn't a lot of development for it just yet. So I'd done it a million times, had 16 devices or whatever, and rooted and ROMmed and all. So, you know, I was prideful. I had it all under control. I go in there. For some reason, didn't back up the stock, anything. Go ahead and throw the custom recovery on it, and found and downloaded one of my favorite ROMs. Put it on the phone. It won't flash. Wrong device. At the bottom of the device tree, he had accidentally uploaded the 2012 Nexus 7 and the 2013. So I'm trying to flash a completely wrong thing. Well, thankfully I was on TWRP, and they won't allow you to, flash something wrong. You can get really in bad shape that way. So I'm sitting here with a completely wiped system wipe, because I always do the full wipe. System wipe, no backup, custom recovery, and that's it on this thing. Brand new device, and I'm like, maybe I got a little ahead of myself. Thankfully, TWRP has ADB push, so I was able to like sideload some stuff and get it to run, but there was a blood run cold moment on a brand new $250 device. It was going to be completely unusable, so I was like, whew, happy ending on that one. It ended up, I trashed it like a month later, so, still bad on me, but a little scary moment.
I think we've all had those experiences flashing ROMs, and no matter how many times I've done it, there's always this moment of suspense when you boot up and you get past the initial hardware splash screen of the phone, waiting to see whether the ROM is gonna actually take off or not.
I know. What? And, you say that, and that reminded me. The very first one I did, my Droid X. God, I love that phone. That was my second favorite. I did like you did, Joe. Like I read and watched a million different YouTube videos. I thought I was prepared and ready. So I do all my research, and everything went fine. But I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
So, it takes longer than you think it does. So you go through all that kind of stuff, and it's flashing, and the new boot animation. Because I was used to the droid, the little thing coming together. Yeah. And it was, I think it was gummy, but I don't remember. But anyway, you get a new boot animation. You turn the phone on, and it starts doing something. I'm like freaking out. I'm like, oh my God, I've broken my phone. I had no idea what was going on. So I'm like, I'm crying almost. I'm like, I don't, because I'm on Verizon contract, so replacing a phone's $600, or you get a flip phone. So I'm watching it, and I'm like, I don't even know what to do. So I'm trying to research, is this normal? And then the welcome screen and all as well. And I'm like, whew, okay, I made it. But it is for even now. Like the first time you do it, you like hold your breath. Is it gonna boot? Is it gonna finish? Is it gonna is everything okay? So you still do.
Yeah, I know I got that with my Nexus 5 for sure, playing San Shimon on there. Like because it does take a long time flashing a whole new operating system on there. Essentially, it does take a long time for that first initial boot sequence to go through. But I mean, I was just like sitting there, biting my nails, like tapping my feet. I'm like, oh crap! I know I did everything right, but there's always like that slight chance something's gonna go wrong. Like in some cases, like mine, I mean, they can go wrong, but usually it's because of user error. But right. I mean, there's always that slight chance, and just knowing there's that risk involved. I mean, you're doing it for the first time, there's like that tension there. But I mean, it finally goes through. It's a pretty rewarding experience, and you see that home screen pop up with your new ROM.
One thing that I always think about the first time I root a new device. is my old Samsung Vibrant. So the first device I actually rooted. Now I had flashed ROMs on my Behold 2, but just using Odin, and the ROMs weren't rooted. They were just different, tweaked ROMs. But on the Vibrant, that thing lost support after 2.2 Froyo. It never even got Gingerbread officially, and I had it running CM9 ice cream sandwich. And it wasn't official CM9. It was some other, I forget what it was, not Liquid, but anyway, Paradise ROM or something like that. I think it was called. Well, I start running it. It's running the CM9 kernel, and it was an alpha stage kernel at the time. And I just remember I used it perfectly for a few weeks, and then one day it shut down in my pocket. I tried to reboot it, and it wouldn't get past the boot animation. So I'm thinking, okay, no big deal. I'm gonna get home. I'm gonna Odin back to stock. I'm gonna reroute it, and I'm gonna flash the ROM again. So whatever it did, whatever the CM9 alpha kernel did to this device, it totally destroyed the 16 gigs of internal storage. Like it's not there anymore. The operating system has no clue how to find it. Maybe a year later, when I'm using the Galaxy S2, I was finally able to resurrect the device just for fun. I flashed the iPhone operating system. What's it called? MyUI. I flashed MyUI on it. And,
easy now. It's not iPhone. I like that.
I flashed MyUI on it, and I got it to actually boot. But without that 16 gigs of internal storage, you can't receive text messages, you can't receive picture messages, you can't even receive phone calls because it has nowhere to put the information, the little bit of information it needs to receive them. So it'll flash a thing like you're trying to get a text message, but when you open it, it'll say it can't store the text message. So it was the weirdest thing I've ever seen, and so every time, because the Vibrant was a blessing to get. I got the Vibrant because I emailed T-Mobile executive customer care and said, hey, I have the Behold 2, and you said you would support it up to Android 2.1, and it never got an update to 1.6. It never officially got 1.6. I put 1.6 on it, but it never officially got it. So since you said this was going to be a 2.1 sporting device, if I had known you weren't going to update it, or it wasn't going to be updated, I would have bought a MyTouch 4G or a MyTouch 3G, the original MyTouch. And so I was expecting them to say, okay, we'll give you an early upgrade, so where I'd have to pay the 2-year contract. They just emailed me and said, what's your shipping address? And they sent me a Vibrant, first Galaxy S phone. And yeah, so I was like, man, I ruined this phone, and it was awful. It was horrible. So that's my story that I think of every time, I get a new device and I plug it into my computer and I'm getting ready to root it. I always flash back to this device that the only phone of mine that I ever got to a point where it actually couldn't be resurrected fully.
Right.
It couldn't be used anymore.
Yeah, it sounds like you kind of like the motherboard connection there, which I've seen.
And the thing was, it wasn't something I did. It was because it ran for days for weeks without a problem, and then one day it just rebooted in my pocket. And so when I start tapping around in XDA's forums, everybody's saying that this has been an issue with CM9 alpha kernel. It has been successfully fixed, but it had to go out. It would have had to go for JTAG repair or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. I didn't know enough back then, and I wasn't paying money to do it. I just upgraded to the S2. No big deal.
Yeah, really. Excellent. Well, we are approaching the end of our time, and I want to give everybody a chance to plug their stuff that's going on. One thing is for sure, though, there's plenty of scary stories, and we've all had like blood run cold, hair-raising moments with technology and other news and all that kind of stuff. But real quick, before we get out of here, I'll go left to right as usual. Our wizard back from the dead, Fred. What's going on with you over at Tech Dissected, bud? What's brewing?
What's brewing? Well, more of the same. I am expecting. Let's see. I got a really cool device to review. I haven't spent any time with it yet. I hope to be able to talk about this and show this to you guys next week. It is a device called an Ozobot. I saw a prototype of it back at CE Week in the spring. What this is a very small robotic toy, I guess. It's got wheels, it's got a light sensor on the bottom, and it reads colored lines and shapes that you can draw on paper or have printed up on paper, and you can program the thing to respond in different ways, starting, stopping, turning, and so on. And it's got all kinds of possible applications, but it looks like it's being primarily marketed as something to use for kids to learn programming in a visual, material, three-dimensional kind of way, which is really cool. And if you have a fleet of these, as I guess you could do, they sent me one of them as a review unit. If you have a fleet of these, which I could certainly see, if not people doing at home or buying for their kids, I can certainly see a school classroom that could potentially have a few dozen of these in a computer lab. Kids will be able to make them dance, design games with them, maybe do some kind of army configurations or whatever. And I'll have more to talk about after I spend some more time with it, but it looks like a super cool and super fun device, so we'll be talking about that. And well, we'll be looking at more news, and I've actually got another consumer electronics event coming up. It's a little over a week away, also in New York City. This is, I believe it's called CES Unveiled, and it's like the preview to CES, which comes up in January out in Las Vegas, which I will not be attending, but this is a half a day in Manhattan in November, and we'll get a preview of some new products and maybe what people are marketing for the holiday season and so on.
Cool, some good stuff. That robot thing, that looks interesting. I saw you shared a little bit about that. I think in our chat. That thing looks really cool, though. I'm excited about what you do with it when you.
Yeah, maybe we'll get this. Maybe we'll get it on the show next week.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Yeah, show it off a little bit. That'd be cool. All right, let me go to our genie in a lamp, Mr. Tony McAfee. What's going on for you this week? What's brewing?
Well, for me, actually, it's just a waiting game at this point. My wife is that close to having the baby, so we're just kind of waiting around. We're at the point where tomorrow I'm actually going to be starting to drive her whenever she goes. She works at CVS, so I'm actually going to be driving her whenever she goes to work, just in case, so that I'll be able to come get her if needed.
Well, that's a scary story, man.
Yeah. So I will have some scary stories pretty soon. We actually got the tub all set up downstairs for the home birth and everything, so we're actually ready to go now. But that's pretty much it for me right now. As you guys know, I mentioned I've got the Droid Turbo and the Galaxy Note 4 right now for review. I should be getting. By the way, the Droid Turbo has made it a good 2 hours on 1% battery, so that's actually something that's interesting. And I should have the Epson Movirio BT200 headset here pretty soon to talk about, hopefully on next week's show. But before we go on, I had Nathan Bass actually commented on one of my shares, and he said he had a scary story. So I just want to stick this in before we go out. So I'm going to read this to you. Nathan Bass says, "Got a scary tech story for MCOJ Brew. The last custom-built desktop rig I did, actually my current system, I should start by pointing out that I've been building custom machines since I was 17 years. I did a few weeks of research online, checking compatibility for different parts and tracking down what I wanted to use for my machine. Decided on a bit of a whim to try an OCZ PSU power supply." Little 600-watt thing. I can't even remember the model. To go along with my EVGA board and first-gen i3. Yes, the machine is getting old at this point. Got all the parts from Newegg, which I usually have pretty decent luck on regarding parts. Got everything in the mail, assembled the machine, went to fire it up, and nothing. Had a light on the board showing that it was getting power from the PSU, but it wasn't responding anyway. Spent a good 3 days trying to figure out what was going on. Was about to strip down the entire machine and redo the install of the motherboard to make sure it wasn't grounding out somewhere. Totally freaked out, thinking either the board or the CPU I received was bad. Before the strip down, I decided to take one last look at the PSU. This thing from OCZ was missing one of the pins from the connector to To top it off, it was missing the entire wire and said pin running back to the PSU itself. Threw it back in the box, contacted Newegg for a refund, and ate the difference for a tough power PSU. All's well that ends well, but needless to say, I won't be using or recommending an OCZ PSU again.
Wow. That was Nathan Bass, right?
What's that?
That was Nathan Bass?
Yeah, Nathan Bass.
Nathan, thanks for sharing that. Yeah, that's a scary story. I'm talking handsets, and you're talking like big rig or full computer rigs, so I can't even imagine. And we've got, let's see what's going on. Peter Parker, Spider-Man, any new?
Well, Alvie, that was a bad attempt at a jump scare. I'm sorry. It's 1 in the morning. I'm like tired. I'm slowly losing it.
What's going on, Peter Parker, Spider-Man?
Well, I've got Green Goblin after this, and then Dr. Octopus is coming after him. He's causing quite a stir in New York right now. But on all seriousness, I power edited 2 reviews, the HTC One Remix and the Nokia Lumia 1320. Got through those. I'm going to set the One Remix review to upload after we get off of this show. And then, so that should be going up really, really early this morning. And then the Nokia Lumia 1320 review, that should be going up hopefully Saturday evening if all goes well. So after those go up on the channel, I do have a Motorola Droid Turbo, which was supposed to be here today, but it's not going to get here till Monday now. So we actually have quite a bit of coverage going up this weekend, and then this next coming week, we've got quite a lot of videos covering some Motorola's hottest phones. So definitely be sure to keep your eye on the channel for lots of good reviews and content coming up very soon.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, I'm excited about it. And for those of you wondering what I'm doing this week, I've got a Moto X 2014 version coming in. Doing that review for Mobile Cup of Joe, so that'll be up in the next week or two as well. So a whole bunch of good stuff going on. And before we get out of here, let me just remind you guys that keep Chuck Payne's family and well wishes and thoughts and prayers for him. Send him a little kind regards and all that kind of stuff. He's got a family issue going on, some health issue stuff going on with a member of the family. So, Chuck, we missed you tonight, but definitely understand why you weren't here and hope everything's going well. And we'll forward the information along as we get it. Reminder to our viewers and listeners that are catching this not live and catching this later in the week, hashtag MCOJBrew, share a scary story, share a costume. We'll try to share that on some of our socials as well. But you can also hit it up in the comment section of this YouTube channel, this YouTube video, on the event page, all over socials. You can find us somewhere if you're trying to find us. But for Back from the Dead, Fred, our wizard, for Peter Parker, Spider-Man, Joe Scarring, for our Genie in a Lamp, Tony McAfee, and for me, it's a me, Mario, your bearded barista, Alvie. Thank you guys so much for watching. Click like, comment, and subscribe to this channel for more, and we will see you guys next week, back at our normal time, 9 p.m. Eastern next Friday. Good night.